All right, so this was a movie that I was going to do for Slasher Sunday, but I watched it. I have already seen this a few times, actually, but it's been a long time. And I have to say, it is not a slasher movie, so I did not pick it as Slasher Sunday. Now, there have been slasher movies or, debatable slasher movies that I have picked for Slasher Sunday that I've gotten into conversations about whether they are slashers or not. And I've gotten a little shit like, you really think this is a slasher? I got that with Death Proof and whatnot. Now, Death Proof was just kind of a convenience pick because I was doing the Quentin Tarantino week. I needed a Slasher Sunday and a Monster Monday. And I was like, hey, Death Proof, Planet Terror, perfect. I'll fudge it to make it work. So that was one of those weeks where I was just like, yeah, I get why, but there are slasher elements to it, and there are slasher elements to this. But in this time, I didn't really care for it. I care to do this as a Slasher Sunday, so I make that decision because it's my fucking channel. So that being said, this movie is extremely dated, and I will say that this is a very hollow and straightforward movie. That I was pretty surprised with. It is just like one after the other. Like the events just kind of unfold and there's not much to them. The movie is just, scene by scene, and it's just kind of like setting the story up, and then it just kind of finishes, and it's all just, I'm not exactly sure how to word this, but it just feels very hollow. It's just like a series of events and then the end, and you're like, okay, that happened. There's not much to think about here. But yeah, okay, let's talk about it. So now this was written by Dee Snider, who also helped with the music, and he also obviously stars as Carlton Hendricks, aka Captain Howdy, which is a reference to the movie The Exorcist, who Reagan talks to on the Ouija board, so a little callback there to The Exorcist. We also have Kevin Gage in here from Heat, big Heat fan, so seeing Waingro in here as the main character, as the detective. We've also got a few familiar faces. We've got Robert Englund, of course, Freddy Krueger himself, and we've got a very young Amy Smart, and we got a young Linda Cardellini. I'm a big Linda Cardellini fan. I am absolutely in love with the girl, and she is as beautiful as ever now as she is then. So she's aged wonderfully. Amy Smart. It's funny, anytime I think of Amy Smart, I always associate her with the Crank movies, but I probably should associate her with Just Friends, which I'm a ginormous Just Friends fan. I think that movie is absolutely hysterical from beginning to end, and everybody in it's amazing. My brother and I quote that movie. That'd be like top 5 most quoted films between my brother and I. The 15 fingers line, I think, is something we use maybe the most from the movie. He skis in his jeans, Dusty Dinkelman, like, a good skater can skate in anything. Ooh, that might be the most used line from the movie. Ooh, because we do that anytime we play video games, anytime we come up with any excuses for anything. If we're like, oh man, well, it was because my internet, or oh, it was because this character, or it was because this guy did it, and it's like, a good skater can skate in anything, and it's just our trump card, like, instantly, like, shut the fuck up, no excuses, stop, oh, my leg hurt, I couldn't run fast enough, whatever. Whenever we're playing, we're super competitive, so anytime one of us uses an excuse, we always throw in the good skater can skate anything. All right, anyway, moving on. So we got a character here who lures kids in from the internet. Now, this was a relatively new concept at that time. This is when the internet was kind of in its infancy. And so that was a new threat to America. That was a new threat to the world. But as viewers, this was something kind of new to us, like the dangers of the internet and of these predators who were luring children. This was a horrible fear, and for good reason. It's happened thousands and thousands of times, maybe millions of times. Sometimes it can be innocent, so to speak, with something like Catfish, where it's just somebody who doesn't look the way they want to look, and they're trying to pretend to be someone else so that they can get attention and get someone to talk to them. And then, of course, there's some times where it's much, much worse than that, and they want to prey on them. The scariest version I've ever seen of this, I've mentioned this movie many, many times on the channel, is Megan is Missing. That movie absolutely wrecked me to my core, and that is all about internet predators luring in young girls on the internet and taking advantage of them. But this movie was one of the first to ever do it. And so it was kind of ahead of its time. And I think that the execution of the movie is very generic. Now that I'm watching it all these years later, I did really like it when it first came out, and I watched it a decent amount, and I really was a fan. But having rewatched it this time, as I said, the events unfold just so simply, and there's really not much to them. It's just, I mean, it's such a basic film. Like, girl gets kidnapped, detective finds girl, apprehends guy, guy goes to rehab, is let loose, they hang him, he comes back out, he tortures another few people, and then the detective finds him and kills him. The end. It is just cut and dry. There's nothing really to it. And having rewatched it now, I can honestly say I was pretty surprised at how shallow the movie was. So I have a less favorable opinion on this movie than I once did. That said, I don't think it's bad by any means. I just think it's fairly generic. Though I will say I do really like Dee Snider's performance in this as Captain Howdy. So there's positives for sure, but this hurt. This hurt my memory of the movie, having rewatched it now with more of a critical eye and somebody who wants to talk about it and have fun just kind of discussing it. Yikes. Soundtrack of the movie is pretty good. I was a pretty big metalhead when I was a kid, so I think the song what was in here that I was like, I watched this like a freaking 4 days ago now. I think it was a Soulfly song, if I remember correctly, that I was like, oh shit, like that was a big one for me growing up. So yeah, a lot of like 90s metal bands in here. I was pretty big into that stuff, Mudvayne and Slipknot and Pantera and freaking Rage Against the Machine, all those kinds of bands. I was big into that shit. I don't listen to almost any of that anymore. I still listen to some metal, but I still like them. Like when someone throws them on, I can listen to stuff. Here's the thing. I don't think there's any music that I've ever liked throughout my life that I don't like now. Like, I've been very consistent about my liking of music. So I don't listen to anything I used to listen to and go, oh my God, what the fuck was I thinking when I was listening to that shit? Like, it doesn't do that. Even stuff that most people would be embarrassed that they liked, I still, when it's on, it's like, I still like it. It's not something I'm going to throw on the radio and on my stereo and listen to in the car when I'm like driving to work or something. But when it's on, I'm like, yeah, I enjoy this. So yeah, music's weird like that. There's people who are like, oh my God, I grew up on this. I can't believe I listened to that shit. It was such garbage. I don't honestly have that opinion. We also have Robert Lusardo in here as well, the tattooed bald guy that you see in everything. This was one of the first times I ever saw that guy. You see Captain Howdy suspending in this movie from hooks. I actually used to date a girl who suspended. She did it down in Phoenix, and I think she traveled a decent amount doing it. But that girl was fucked in the head, man. Unfortunately, a lot of these people who hang out in these kinds of places are usually not always, of course. You never want to judge a book by its cover, but in my interactions, I've hung out with a decent amount of people from these kinds of clubs and from these kinds of groups. They're usually, there's something wrong, like something happened to them that fucked them up. And this is how they deal with it. This is their therapy. This is how, and there are some people who are kind of like tourists and they just want to feel edgy and they want to feel cool. but a lot of them, the majority of them, are pretty broken people, and they're just trying to find a way to fit in or to have some catharsis or something. And she was, oh my god, you want to talk about horror? Talk about her childhood growing up with, oh my god, I'm not going to get into any of it, but wow, bad stuff. But yeah, she was fucked in that. Now, I don't understand why they cut him down, and he's like, I was almost there, and they're like, we thought you were dead. Hanging from your chest skin is not going to kill you. I mean, you'd pass out maybe from the pain, but kill you? I don't see why it would kill you. I mean, I guess your body could go into shock, but he clearly is pretty, desensitized to this kind of stuff. So I'm not sure why he's like, and he wants to die too. So he's mad because they cut him down because he was just about to die. He's just suspending. Like, you're not, like, if you hang there long enough, I mean, you're going to get worn out, but you're not going to die. You black out. So that was a weird scene. I was like, death? Why is he dying? Did I miss something? Did he have a rope around his neck? So, yeah, in this movie, he only kills 2 people. So he kills, and it's funny because he accidentally kills the one girl. He tortures her to death, and she has a congenital heart defect. So she dies from the torture, but everyone else is still alive because their body can handle it. So he's just torturing people, and he's trying to make them ascend. He's trying to evolve them through rituals and primitive rituals. I guess I'm going to be redundant here, but Lizardo's character kind of talks about this, and it's an interesting perspective. It's fucking wrong, but it's an interesting perspective that they have control over their bodies because the scarification and the tattooing and all of that stuff and the piercings, and they're able to kind of get in tune with their body because of the pain and being able to, as I said, transcend it. So it's interesting, and I do think that there is something to be said for that, to be able to have control over your body like that. But yeah, so, all right. God damn, man, it's so fucking hot out here that I'm having a hard time concentrating. I think I was going somewhere with that, but my fucking... Oh, yeah, so he was killing people. Okay, so he accidentally tortured that girl to death, which accidentally... I mean, when you torture somebody, there's definitely a possibility they could die from the torture. Okay, moving on, though. So nobody deserves it, but you have the people who lynch him in this movie... And just because the tree breaks and he does live, he punishes like the one person who was actually against him doing it. The wife of Robert Englund gets her throat slit by him. So he decides to kill her, but then only torture the husband and then torture everyone else. I guess to him, killing is like a courtesy. He's like, oh, I'm not gonna put you through pain. I'm just gonna end your life. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and stick shit into you and pierce your genitals and hang you from hooks and whatnot. Like, I'm gonna do you a courtesy. I'm gonna do you a favor, and I'm just gonna kill you. You know. And so he kills her. He slits her throat, and then he takes Robert Englund and he hangs him from hooks, which is horrible. But at least when the cops find him, he gets pulled down and he gets to live the rest of his life. This is a terrible stain on his life, and he has to live with the memory of that and whatever, but he gets to live. Like, the one chick he actually kills in this movie, actually cuts her throat, is like the one person who was like, you can't go out there and do that to him. What are you up to? This isn't right. Whatever. So I just find that kind of ironic. And then, he's torturing a whole bunch of people. Man, Gage's daughter in this movie, which his actual name is Detective Gage in this movie, so he keeps his last name. So I don't know if, like, Dee had him in mind when he wrote the script, but his poor fucking daughter, Linda Cardellini's character in this, she gets abducted after... It's so funny. The internet stuff in this is not only so dated, but so unrealistic. Like, when Amy Smart's there talking to him, or even before that, when Linda Cardellini is there with her friend and she's in a chat room, because you used to have little chat rooms that you'd sit in on AOL. I remember there was like a 23 person limit, if I remember correctly, and you would go and you'd look for categories that you would want to discuss, and I would always go into guess movie by plot. That was my big group, and I would always wait trying to get into the group. And And so you get into a chat group and you start chatting with people, and you'd be like, "Where are you from?" And then you'd have a whole list of places like Huntington Beach, wherever you were from. You could find a chat group where people were in there, and then you'd start chatting. And so in this, she's like, "Hey guys, what's up?" And she's waiting for a response. And then boom, someone's like, "Hey." And she's like, "Here we go. Oh girl, come over here. Check this guy out." She hasn't even looked at his profile yet. They haven't had any interactions, no discussions, no nothing. Nothing to connect them at all. Just her seeing him saying, "What's up?" A screen name. Nothing. Not knowing his age, not knowing where he's from, not knowing nothing. She's like, "Hey girl, come on over here." It's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense. And then when Amy Smart's character's there and she's helping him and she's like, "Oh, look at this." And she changes the information. Like, he even would care, like, "Oh, change water sports to snow, winter sports." Or water, whatever. Waterboarding or some bullshit. And then he sees that switch. He's like, "Oh, it must be the police." Oh, it couldn't just be a girl trying to, fucking impress you or whatever by looking at your profile. Silly. Anyway, he sends him to the next door neighbors. But to be fair, he does want to get caught. He seriously does want to get caught. Now, the interesting question, the only question that this movie really raises that is all that deep and is something that is worth kind of diving deeper into is Carlton actually reformed in this movie? And is it because his pills are crushed and that he's hung out and he's betrayed by the detective that's supposed to be, watching over, guarding him? Now, I don't know if Detective Gage was supposed to be looking after him or not, but he would be the wrong person to assign to that detail. But nor here nor there. They see each other, so he knows that he's letting him get hung. He's letting him get lynched. He does do a good job of pretending like he is no longer the maniac that he once was, but he is also turned very quickly. But so the medication thing, like they run over the medication and whatever, but they go to hang him on the tree, and he instantly is like, Captain Howdy again. It's not like once he wakes up from the thing, because he says like the Freddy line, "What a rush!" A little nod to Robert Englund there within his own movie. You have him actually acting like Captain Howdy right before. He's like, "Death is like an old friend of mine," or something. He's like instantly Captain Howdy again. And is it like that break where he's pulled away in the car? Because in the car, when he's looking out at Gage, he's kind of like, "Help me. Like, what are you doing? Are you really going to let me get taken?" And I guess maybe that breaks him right there, and it snaps him out of, his now version of his psychosis. Now he's in a different kind of psychosis where he's like a good cardigan-wearing citizen. But this town never even gives him a chance. And 4 years, really 4 years? Man, reformed in 4 years. I don't know. I would have to look into how fast that was happening. This reminds me a lot of Psycho 2. I feel like he got some inspiration from Psycho 2, which is a fantastic sequel about Norman coming back and Mr. Toomey, "You're a loony. Put you in the loony bin." I fucking love Toomey, man. He's the best. And they almost make you feel sympathetic towards him. I mean, he's a piece of shit, and he's torturing little girls, and he's torturing Linda Cardellini for sure. And that's a no-no. You don't hurt Linda Cardellini. You don't hurt anybody, but you surely as hell don't hurt her. And we even find out that he raped her in this movie. Ugh, he's just awful. And then, yeah. The scene that's always stuck out in my mind in this movie is Robert Englund in his underwear watching his wife, who is currently dead, and somehow Dee Snider, who's like 6'10" and this big muscle. He got pretty jacked for this movie. I don't know if that's how he always looked, but man, he's in shape and he's very intimidating. He's a big presence. I don't know how tall he actually is. He's got to be 6'6", 6'7". He's a big dude. I don't know how he could possibly hide behind her and his arms behind hers. No way. She's clearly just dancing. The actress is just dancing in that scene, and then he throws her down. But okay, so that all said, when he's like dancing in his chair and he's just got on like underwear and like a wife beater and cowboy boots. I don't know why. That is just one of the sleaziest scenes. Talking about Psycho kind of reminds me of the Psycho 3 scene with Jeff Fahey and the lamps. It's such a creepy, awkward sequence, and it's always stuck in my mind as a moment, so I have to bring that up. Another really, 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 really stupid thing is, so I'm guessing Carlton's wearing a wig, right? Because it does look like a wig. It is a wig. But that said, so he still has a shaved side, red haired, like downed mohawk. Like, why is his hair still red? Was he dyeing it in prison for the last 4 years? So he comes out, when we see him again, so he's hung and he wakes up, he does the "what a rush" line. Then the next time we see him, he has every piercing back in his body. So he re-pierced he fucking found all the jewelry to pierce his entire body again. His face, his nose, all that stuff. But he also shaved the sides of his head and then bleached and, did his hair red again. Come on. Dumb. That's dumb. Like, he should have had black hair. He should have had something. He should have not have had the freaking piercings again. Or had new piercings that he just did, like, that are still bleeding. Something like that. They would have added some realism to the movie, but just made no sense at all. And Robert Englund is also watching, like, a old dude raping a young girl to get hard so that he can fuck his wife. That scene was absolutely creepy as all hell. And then the rigs that he puts them on are like Saw-like in a way, where he's hanging everyone from things and he's pushing the little rods down into the girls and all that. Oh man. The cops finding the torture room, that'd be wicked, man. The stuff they find in there, he's all hanging from his body. Pretty gnarly stuff. Good stuff. And yeah, I mean, he does kind of go out in the most painful way imaginable. He's hung up on a meat hook like the chick in Texas Chainsaw Massacre and then lit on fire, where he actually does show that he is afraid. I've never been afraid of a thing in my life. You look afraid now, Carlton. Yeah, he fucking lights him on fire and he's just burning on a hook, and then he rips, like his body tears from the burning onto the ground and the whole place burns down. It's great shit. But yeah, I mean, being burned alive, I would think, would be the most painful death you could possibly have. So he does kind of go out in a very fitting way. So anyway, thank you to Caleb for sending this to me. And yeah, any fans of this one? How are you guys feeling about it? When's the last time you watched it? That might tell you a lot. So you might need to rewatch it if you haven't seen it in a while, because it is dated. That's Linda Cardellini on the front cover, huh? Yeah. What a beautiful woman. All right. Anyway, guys. Adios.